This week on Shift Points, the Galaxy was supposed to get a new radio, but what ended up happening is the entire interior got pulled out. We got some Dynamat, and we used my new favorite thing, Evap-o-Rust, because nobody wants rusty floors. Thank you guys so much for joining. He started this project. Found a piece of brass he's gonna take. Alright everyone, we are back at it with the Galaxy this week. For those that you don't know, I have a 1964 Galaxy that was left to me by my uncle, my great uncle, and it's set for about 15 years. And then last year, me and Dad really dove in, got this thing running, got it going. Did a lot of stuff to this car. Put headers on it, disc brake conversion, new brake lines, new fuel lines, new fuel pumps, swapped it over from an alternator, or from a generator to an alternator. Done a lot of work to this car, and it's kind of my goal to make this thing like the ultimate cruiser is kind of what I keep telling everybody. I want to be able to jump in this thing and drive it to California and back if I want to, you know. So that's my goal with this car, is just to make it the ultimate cruiser, make it drive good, make it handle well, make it not smoke eventually. That would be nice. The rings and the valve seals are definitely shot in this thing. I'm gonna have to dig into that at some point. The first thing I'm gonna do is pull the front seat out. I'm here by myself. Dad's out of town right now, so we're gonna see if I can get this thing pulled out by myself. Might have to call my wife in and get her to help me, not sure. But we'll get under this thing, get this seat unbolted, get it pulled out just to give us a little extra room. And potentially we have a box of extra Dynamat. I might pull the carpet out of this thing and put Dynamat in the floor. Let's see. I won't say that's a for sure just yet, but for sure we're gonna get the radio out and give ourselves a little more working room under the dash. I made the decision while I was sitting here and looking at it, went ahead and got a carpet ordered for this car, so I'm gonna pull this old carpet out and get it out of our way. And I got it with some mass backing, and I'll wait until it gets here to decide what I'm gonna do with the Dynamat. If that's gonna do better or as good as the Dynamat, then I'll just use it. Might do both, never know. So let's go ahead and get the carpet pulled out and get everything out of our way. We can vacuum this thing, get it cleaned up. One of the most ridiculous things I've read was how to get this back seat out. I don't think I videoed it last time I did it because it was too difficult, but now I'm gonna do it. This is for your entertainment, I promise. This is how they said to do it. I swear that's what they said. Here we go, you can get your finger under it a little bit and then do that. It's one side. That's the other. Just like that. Alright guys, there you go. Got the whole floor cleaned out. Got the whole rear seat out of it. Got all that stuff ready. This is going to be, while I did not plan to put carpet in this thing, it's ordered now, so it's on the way. I did not plan on that for this, but here we are. This car just keeps giving back to me. I just think it's so cool. You guys remember last time we were working on this thing, I found some stuff from the Marshall Ford dealership where this car was bought, some pencils and an ice scraper and stuff like that, stuff that was under it. Well, I was cleaning out the carpet, and I'm so glad I saw this because I saw this red ticket here. And this red ticket, I mean, it looks just like a 50-50 ticket. I figured it was just from like a fair or something in this area. But it's actually a rain check to the new Asheville Speedway, if the camera will focus on it. There you go. Rain check to the new Asheville Speedway, which was the circle track that used to be on the river in Asheville. And Richard, and I'll have to ask Dad the guy's name, they were part owners in a car together, and they took it and built it. My papa welded the roll cage up for it and all of that, and they raced it at New Asheville Speedway up on the river, which was It was one of the biggest, it was the place to be on Friday nights around here. Most of the racers would race in Asheville on Friday, then they'd go to Hickory on Saturday, because that was Asheville run on Friday nights, Hickory run on Saturday nights every week. And this is just, I mean, you guys know how much I love circle track racing and kind of all of it, and kind of the 427 being in this car, being available in this car was so they could run the 427 in NASCAR specifically. And I'll just tell you, this is just like made my day. I just think it's just the coolest thing. And it's just literally just a little piece of paper, but that is, that's really cool. I'm very happy with this. I'll tell you, this is not exactly how I planned for this to go today, but getting this carpet in is going to make a big difference because it's going to insulate everything and it's going to help with the heat and all that stuff. This car was pretty darn quiet, but this is going to just make it that much quieter and that much better. So I went in here, scraped everything off with a putty knife, any of the big pieces, got it vacuumed out. Now I'm going to go in here with a drill and a wire brush, and I'm going to just go through and loosen any of the big pieces, anything that's kind of loose at all. Go ahead and get that knocked up, vacuum it out again, and then after we get the big pieces knocked out, I will get that vacuumed out. And I have some of this Evap-o-Rust. It's a CRC product, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, CRC. So yeah, this Evap-o-Rust super safe rust remover. Basically, you can just take this, put it on. What I'm going to do is, since we have all the carpet and everything out of this thing at this point, and before I put a bunch of layers back on it, I want to make sure that the floor is protected. This car has absolutely no rust in it. And so last thing I want is to put all this new stuff in it and have left a spot that was kind of bare and let some rust start forming and kind of mess everything up. So once I get this cleaned out, I finish getting it cleaned out, I'll put a layer of this Evap-o-Rust. I have to read the instructions. I will put that on here, let this sit, and then we might take, what I'll probably do is find some rattle can red and put on this floor and add a second layer between the Evap-o-Rust and the paint. That should keep this thing protected for a long time and keep everything really, really well done. All right, y'all, this thing is completely wire brushed and vacuumed out. That was a job. That took me a long while to get that done, but it's all cleaned out now. Now, the first thing you can see with that wire brush, we got chunks of this paint off here, some of that loose stuff, especially up in here and things like that. That's all there. So now, I read the instructions on the Evap-o-Rust, and the plan is I've got a plastic tote over here. I'm going to dump a bunch of it in there, and it actually says to use high quality paper towels and actually soak those paper towels in it and then layer it onto the surface, that, you know, this entire surface. So Dad has these pink shop towels. These are good towels. I'm probably going to use like the whole roll because this thing is a boat. That's probably going to do us for the day because you're supposed to let it set for like 12 hours. And I'm not going to stay up here for 12 hours. Let me make sure that's clear. 1 to 12 hours it says, but I'm going to let this thing soak all night because why not? Might as well let it set, let it do as much as it can do. The last step is to take plastic and cover up all those wet paper towels and then let this thing set, like I said, an hour to 12 hours. I'm going to let it set overnight because I'm out of here. I'm done for the day. This has been a tremendous amount of work. Not at all what I expected to be doing today. I was supposed to be pulling a radio. That was my initial plan because that's the point of all of this, is to get our new radio installed. But that's how this stuff goes. Things snowball. That's what car guys do. We just can't help it. We got to keep doing better. So since all this was apart, this is where we are. Tomorrow I'll be back. We're going to see how this stuff did. We'll get this thing wiped down. We got to wipe it down with some water, get all of this out of everything. I think it's going to look really good. Going to get in here and pull these rags off. I'm very curious about what it's going to look like underneath here. So let's just do a quick peek while we're here together. I did pull the plastic bags off. I haven't really pulled any of the paper towels yet, so let's go ahead and pull these out of the way. Nothing drastic, but you can see that all of this surface that didn't have paint on it is really gray back down to bare metal. There's another good shot of it too. So this is looking really good. These spots right here especially, this had a little bit of surface rust on it right there. Just a little. This thing's super solid. Good car. And then the next thing you do is actually come in with more paper towels or rag or whatever with water and wipe it down with water. Get it clean here. I'll probably put a box fan in here and just let it dry up good. Okay, so while I was letting that dry, I set the dehumidifier up here on a milk crate and went ahead and kind of shut everything off in there, except close the windows and the doors and everything, so that this thing can blow in here, get this very good and dry after I wiped it down with water. I figured I probably won't do to the extent that I did up at the front, but here in the trunk, I'm gonna at least get this stuff out of here. I don't know if this was factory or if this is something that my uncle put in here. I'm guessing it's something he put in here. It kind of looks like something he would have put in here. But this stuff smells terrible too, so I'm just getting all this old stuff that smells bad and kind of help this car out a little bit as far as that goes. So I pulled everything out of it, got all the stuff that was in the trunk over there. I'm going to pull the spare tire and the jack out of here. All of that stuff's original too. It's kind of crazy with this car. And get this out and see what it needs. Well, I spoke too soon. Under this cover, there's definitely some spots back here. This by just surface rust. This thing is still insanely solid, but just some surface rust here. So I guess this thing, the trunk's gonna get the same treatment as the front now. This really was supposed to be a video about installing a radio. Turns out it's just going to be about preventative maintenance with Evap-o-Rust. Thank you, CRC, for making a good product. Alright, get in here and hit this with a wire brush and do the same thing we did yesterday. Alright, after all that, everything is wire brushed up. I'm really glad that I did this in the trunk floor though. As you can see, there was a lot more surface rust back here than I thought. There was some like seam sealer here between these two holes. And that had quite a bit of surface rust on it. There's actually a couple little places like right in here that kind of had some too. So anyway, I've got everything vacuumed out and cleaned out. There's actually a little bit of a pinhole right there. Get everything vacuumed out here and go ahead and start this process again. Got my paper towels, got my Evap-o-Rust here. Gonna get all the paper towels lined over the entire trunk floor and then get it covered up with plastic and let this thing do its thing. Alright, got everything ragged and bagged. And now we're going to let this thing sit all night again. I was able to go to stockinteriors.com. Yesterday I got the carpet order, the front carpet, and then they also make a reproduction for the trunk floor. This exact material that comes out of the trunk floor, I got that coming as well. So that's great. This thing's going to be really good. I mean, I'll probably, once this is good and I hit it with that rust preventative, the trunk and the under the rear seat, I'm going to line with Dynamat and then put that material over top of it. So I mean, this is all worth it in the end, but man, just not at all what I was planning on doing this week. Not even close, but all good stuff and all needed. So we'll just come back tomorrow and get this pulled off. Alright guys, back at it here. Went ahead and got the bags and the rags pulled out of this thing. It did a really good job getting that stuff taken care of. But what we're going to do on this thing is, since it's all going to get recovered and I've got a new truck panel, new carpet and everything, I'm going to take a can of spray paint here. This is just Rust-Oleum 2x Ultra cover. I put up a reel the other day talking about what spray paint you guys use, and I got this more than anything. People saying that this 2x Ultra cover was really good, and it's like a paint and primer together. So it is absolutely pouring the rain here again, as it seems to do every day now. So I won't be able to do that because I'm going to back it out. I'm not going to do that here in the shop because it'll just suffocate me to death. But what I am going to do is I'm going to check and just make sure that this is kind of good enough. I'm going to hit this little spot right here and just do a quick color check on it. Like I said, it's going to be covered, so it doesn't really matter. But just so we can kind of move forward with this. It's going to take more than one can. But that's a lot brighter than what's back here, but like I said, all this has been faded because it's been under that mat forever, and it's literally going to go back under that mat. So that's just kind of a test pass to see how it is. I'm going to go ahead and get everything, not today, but whenever it stops raining next week sometime maybe, I can get in here and cover this all up with a good coat of paint. Maybe a couple coats. I'm going to do that in here and over there under the carpet as well. And that's going to take care of this floor. And then we'll talk about doing some sort of Dynamat or something like that back here in the back as well. And just get this thing super quiet. One more thing I'm going to do kind of for the fun of it, but also so I don't get any overspray on these door panels when I spray the floor. I'm going to pull these door panels off, and I think if I can do this, there's a plastic ring behind these window cranks. Alright, you get in here with this tool and you should be able to, hopefully, theoretically, pull it off just like that. That's handy as can be. So lay that there. Take a few of these screws out and check us out, and just kind of see what's back here, and like I said, just get the panels out of our way so we don't get any overspray on anything. Alright, pull those panels out and check that out. That is definitely the original lining on these doors, and I am not about to mess with it on both sides of this. Or I said door panels, but you know what I mean, rear section panels. So that's all just going to stay exactly how it is. I'm not going to mess with it, but at least I won't get any sort of overspray on the door panels, which will be important. So, alright, I think that's going to do us for today. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. Alright, got the Galaxy outside here. Last night off camera, because I have my son with me, and it's hard enough to do these videos alone, let alone wrangling a almost 2-year-old. So, I went ahead and got this thing painted, the floor in it. It turned out excellent. I mean, I'm just really happy with it. Again, I realize that none of this is going to be seen, but this just turned out really nice. It's all red now. And like, again, not that it matters, but this is like extremely close, especially for this. But everything got painted. Put 2 coats of that on here. It took 10 cans of paint. 10 cans of paint to get this thing really fixed up. So that should take care of any sort of rust problems that we have. Or any potential rust problems, I should say. I'm really happy with how this turned out. Did go up to the Napa store. They had some of this 3M 3M urethane seam sealer. If we go in here and look, you can see that some of these seams between the fenders and the floor tub, that stuff right there is kind of gone, and it chunked out while I was working on it. You can actually see some of it laying there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my gasket scraper and I'm going to get all of this knocked out and go ahead and reseal that. And the other thing I'm going to do, there's these handful of holes here in the floor that were covered by big gobs of seam sealer like that. And I'm going to go ahead and seam seal those up as well as a couple, this little pinhole, rust hole there. And here, I'm going to go ahead and just use seam sealer, seal those up real good, and call it well better than good. Okay, welcome back. Good evening to Project Snowball. That's what I'm going to start calling this, because we just keep snowballing into more things. What I'm going to do today, what I'm going to start doing today at least, is my plan. Since especially under the seat and in the trunk, the carpet that I got with, they call it mass backing. It's kind of a thick, almost like rubber backing on it. I'm very curious to see what that's going to look like. But I shouldn't have to do anything sort of sound deadening or anything like that in the front of the car because of that covering that's on the carpet. But I will have to do, or well, I want to do, I should say, don't have to do, I want to do some Dynamat here in the floorboard of the car, under the rear seat, and in the tunnel up to the trunk, and in the entire trunk. So basically just to help get the sound in this thing down to even more. This car is super quiet going down the road as it is, but that Dynamat's just going to add a little extra heat protection, keep it from getting as warm in the car, because hopefully one day this thing's going to get air conditioning as well. Again, ultimate cruiser. And you think about this car, I want it to handle well, cruise down the highway well, good radio, all that stuff that's coming in from retro sound, all that kind of things. That's what this car needs to be. Air conditioning, all the creature comforts is what I'm going for in this car. So while I've got this apart, while I've got the floor down to bare, and then got it painted and everything looks really good in it, put this Dynamat in, it's going to add a little extra. If you remember, when we did Dad's truck, we bought a box of Dynamat and had a lot left over. Had about 6 pieces left over, big pieces. And so if we get in here and look, I already started to kind of rough in the Dynamat here. I'll have to make some cuts to clear the seat mount and things like that, but there'll be a piece there, piece here, and then we'll put a piece up there in the top, and then probably I ordered a small box to kind of help me piece together. But I'm also going to do the inner fenders here as well. So we'll do all of that. That's going to really, like I said, make a massive difference. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on this. First thing that I want to do on this thing, there's a mount here in the floor right there. That's where the seat back bolts to, this guy right here. So it notches into these hooks up here on the top. You guys saw me when I took it out. And there's 2 bolts in the bottom and holds the seat back in place. So I'm going to get around this. The one thing about the Dynamat that's nice is that even if you don't cover like every square inch of it, it's still going to make a big difference. So anywhere where there's these big open spaces on the metal, that's where I want to do, make sure I get good coverage and make sure I get it stuck down well. The other thing I want to notch out for is the body mounts, in case for some reason that needed to come off. I hope that never happens, or anytime soon that happens. But I'm going to go ahead and notch around that. So I'm trying to think of stuff like that as I go to make sure that I get as much coverage as I can, but also still make this thing easy to work on. So I got this trimmed out and everything. And if you've never done Dynamat, basically the necessity is some kind of roller like this. This is just a seam roller, probably from like the dollar store or something. Anything like this, if you have a little wider one, it makes it a little easier. But the main thing that you want is like these contours and stuff that's in the floor, any sort of these indentions and things, you want that to really seat in there, and this roller makes that happen. So we can go ahead and I'm going to start on this side. You peel the backing off, get it down to the sticky surface. This isn't rocket science, I know, but at the same time, it's good to kind of know the process. And what I did on the 55 truck when I was doing it, I would start peeling it off like this, get like a decent sized section of it, pick the other side up, make sure I had it lined up where I wanted it, which I'm going to use this, basically use the body mount as my point of reference on how I want this. I've got plenty of clearance on the seat belt as well. Try and get it square. Something like that. The other thing I have to make sure, there's a tab back here where this panel gets screwed back on. So I want to make sure I've got plenty of clearance on that as well. And then we just kind of go ahead and start sticking it. And then once you start, you take your roller and then just start rolling every bit of it and make sure it's stuck really well. And that's how easy this stuff is. And if you remember when we took the 55 truck on Power Tour last year, if it wasn't for this Dynamat, I'm pretty sure me and Dad would have been completely miserable in that truck because we would have basically been in an oven. But we had like the thick, like 3/4 inch foam. I can't remember the specific name for it. It's a Dynamat brand, Dynaliner maybe. We put that in the headliner and then put this stuff in the floor, and it basically kept us from being stuck in an oven for a week and made a big difference. So anyway, I will keep going with this. Make sure I've got all the contours taken care of. Make sure it's seated really well, even though there's not anything going to be on this. The other nice thing about this Dynamat stuff is that it is a little forgiving, at least until the point that you roll it down and get it fully stuck over the whole surface area. You can kind of get it pulled back up and get it realigned if you need to, and then you can just keep rolling it. So that's the nice thing. I remember worrying about that the first time I did this. I was afraid it was going to be very much of as soon as it stuck, you were done, and then found out that it's a lot more forgiving than that. So when you do this, I just kind of keep this panel picked up. You saw me pull all the backing off of it, and then just like a sticker, you know, just like a vinyl sticker, you can just take this and start just rolling it down and make sure that you get it nice and seated on everything. The one last thing that I will say is when you're working on something like this with that Dynamat, you gotta have a really good pair of scissors. These are actually a pair of Cutco scissors that Dad bought a long time ago. These are like excellent scissors. As long as you keep them good and clean, you can use them for this and not hurt them. These things are still super sharp. Cut through this stuff like butter, and then you can, like I said, take some lacquer thinner or whatever and clean the blade really well after you get done, and they stay super sharp and they cut this stuff like really, really well. So like I've got a contour right here that I kind of need to fit to, so I'm just going to kind of take and cut just a little bit of relief in it, and then that will let me lay it down and then roll that down in place, and then I can roll the other side of it down. There'll be a little gap there, but we'll take care of it with some of the seam tape here later on. I'm going to pull you guys in here closer after I got this piece down. But you can see this follows all the contours that's going on here in the floor really good. And even this tight notch here, it seats down in there very well. And all of this is laid down really flat, stuck really well. I'm going to go ahead and get another piece over here on this side, and then I'll make some panels that'll go down in here and kind of close this up also. This guy down here, there's kind of a footwell in here a little bit. Go ahead and, not really footwell, there's just a well here. I'll make a piece that goes in there out of I had some of the scrap pieces from Dad's truck here as well. And I always keep this stuff like this. This is great because for places like this, it's literally going to be almost perfect. You know, you can just cut a notch off of it and line it up pretty well, and it's going to seat down in there really good. That's going to take care of that place. So definitely just kind of keep all this stuff that you can. If you need to, you can kind of piece it together a little bit if you need to. Alright, just got delivered the new trunk mat for this thing. Got this from stockinteriors.com. You can tell it's got like a felt backing on it, which is pretty nice. And this is what they recommended was the closest thing to the stock, which if you guys remember, go back and watch the beginning of it. This is really close to what it looks. Looks like it's more of a looks like it's kind of a printed on pattern though, where the other one has some texture, but I'd rather it be like this. This will be a lot easier to keep clean where it doesn't have that texture in it. So I'm gonna get this thing unrolled, figure out what direction it needs to go in. This piece here, it actually goes around the fuel, where the fuel fill neck is. So I guess I'll have to get some sort of adhesive to put that on. It goes around there in this area. So I have to get that stuck on. But in general, this is pretty good. Alright, I got that kind of laid in there, kind of straightened up a little bit. Wanted to show this piece here. So this piece will end up having to be glued. I'll get some spray glue or something, put on that. And then you can see they've got notches cut out in it there, so it'll fit this contour. And then you can lay this piece of the trunk mat over it and you don't see those at all. So that looks really, really good. Alright guys, that's gonna do us this week. I think all of these things were really necessary for this Galaxy, and it's gonna just help with the general road noise and everything. I love Dynamat. I mean, this stuff just works so good, and it goes down super easy, and it's not very particular. So I really like how it works, and I'm glad that it's in the trunk and in the back seat of the car. this is all good. I appreciate you guys so much. And if you'll come back next week, we are actually going to get into pulling out this old radio and getting our awesome new retro sound radio put in. So we appreciate you guys so much for following us, subscribing, doing all the things, liking, putting some comments. Tell us if you like Dynamat as much as I do, because I'll tell you, and they're an awesome company. They actually responded to us on social media. I tagged a lot of people, and this is one that shared our stuff and did everything. And that's really cool to see, and it kind of makes you feel good when you get to do that. So shout out to them. That was really cool. Make sure you follow us on social media. You've been kind of up on this. I've been trying to do more posts and things like that to keep you guys in the loop on what's going on as we're doing these, because I'm working on trying to get a little bit of a buffer on videos, because we've had a lot of stuff going on outside of the YouTube world, and so I want to try and make sure that I'm staying ahead of it, so we're still able to put out these videos for you guys. Thank you guys very, very, very much for everything you do, for watching, subscribing, all of that stuff. And if you'll hang around, you'll see us next week. Thanks.